News out of Washington over the weekend, there will not be a shutdown of the United States federal government. That's good news, right? Apparently not, if you're a Republican. This is a story on the subject from NPR by Claudia Grisales. Headline, Speaker Johnson announces plan to keep the government funded until December 20. House Speaker Mike Johnson announced a temporary agreement that would keep the government funded until December 20. And then from just a bit further down in the article, it would include, quote, only the extensions that are absolutely necessary to avoid a government shutdown, Johnson said in a letter to House Republicans. While this is not the solution any of us prefer, it is the most prudent path forward under the present circumstances, he wrote. As history has taught, and current polling affirms, shutting the government less than 40 days from a fateful election would be an act of political malpractice. Indeed, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had described a government shutdown with weeks left in the presidential race as politically beyond stupid. So this is good news, right? It's good news for us as ordinary Americans, and it's good news for the Republican Party. They have avoided a government shutdown for which they, as the party that controls the House of Representatives, would have rightly taken the blame for. Nice job, Speaker Mike Johnson, right? Well, according to a lot of right-wingers, wrong. I was looking at this on Twitter this morning, and there are a lot of Republicans, a lot of right-wingers, a lot of Trump supporters who are super mad at Mike Johnson for avoiding the government shutdown. For instance, on Twitter from Project Constitution, quote, Speaker Mike Johnson has caved, bringing a continuing resolution to the floor without the SAVE Act, just like the gutless coward he is. Johnson's weak, spineless, and completely owned by the Democrats. The Biden-Harris regime hates any attempt at election integrity, and Johnson's too pathetic to push back. This CR keeps Pelosi's insane spending in place until Christmas, when Johnson will probably roll over again. House GOP leadership is a total disgrace. They're mad. That response that I just read to you is typical of the kinds of reactions I'm seeing from the far right to what I would think would be good news. The Republicans avoiding a government shutdown that they would be blamed for and that would undoubtedly hurt them in the quickly approaching election. But they're mad because they really wanted to use this government shutdown. They really wanted to push things to the edge of the cliff so they could use that as leverage to pass the SAVE Act. In fact, Donald Trump himself even posted about this on his fake vanity social media site, Truth Social. He wrote, quote, if Republicans don't get the SAVE Act and every ounce of it, they should not agree to a continuing resolution in any way, shape, or form. Democrats are registering illegal voters by the tens of thousands as we speak. They will be voting in the 2024 presidential election, and they shouldn't be allowed to. Only American citizens should be voting in our most important election in history, or any election. A vote must happen before the election, not after the election when it is too late. Be smart, Republicans. You've been pushed around long enough by the Democrats. Don't let it happen again. Remember, this is Biden-Harris's fault, not yours. So a lot of these right-wingers who are pissed at Mike Johnson are mad because he didn't do what Donald Trump told him to. He allowed himself to be pushed around. Donald Trump said, don't let yourself get pushed around. And what does Mike Johnson do? He lets himself get pushed around into not shutting down the government and hurting his own party in the election. But they really want to pass the SAVE Act. And what is the SAVE Act? Well, a lot of what Donald Trump says in that Truth Social post I just read to you, in fact, pretty much all of it, is false. The SAVE Act is premised on the idea of strengthening federal election regulations to prevent undocumented immigrants from voting. Trump claims in that Truth Social post that the Democrats are registering tens of thousands of illegal voters. That's not true. There's no evidence that anything like that is happening. Illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants are not voting or trying to vote. It is an imaginary problem, like most of the problems that the Republican Party attempts to solve these days. It's something that is completely made up. It's just invented to throw red meat to their base, to feed their xenophobia, to feed their fear, to make them think that we're being invaded and taken over, and that's why they need to rush to the polls and vote for Donald Trump. It's completely made up. It's nothing you have to worry about. It's certainly not anything that demands federal legislation to address. But nonetheless, the SAVE Act was created to address this imaginary problem, and they're really, really mad that they're not going to get the SAVE Act out of this government shutdown. But there are other implications of the SAVE Act beyond stopping the non-existent flood of undocumented voters that was pointed out by columnist Tom Hartman in a piece he wrote for The New Republic that was published on September 19th. Quote, "The SAVE Act is a proposed federal law, so first off, it would put a future president, say Trump, in charge of enforcing it, taking that power away from the states. Millions of voter registrations in any states the president decides are problematic could be removed until those voters cure their registrations, and state authorities will have no say in it." So let's stop right there. You can sort of see what the appeal is to the Trump Republicans right there. It will put imperial powers in the hands of what they assume will be their president, Donald Trump, and he will be able, from his dictatorial perch atop the federal government, to decide in all of the states which voters should count and which voters shouldn't. That would give Donald Trump, as president, the power to single-handedly purge whatever voters they think they can do without or should do without from the rolls of the various states. But there's an even more insidious implication of the SAVE Act that Hartman goes on to describe. Quote, "And what will the law require citizens who want to vote do? Lacking a passport or other proof of citizenship with their married names, they must produce both a birth certificate with the seal of the state where it was issued, no copies allowed, and a current form of identification, both with the exact same name on them. That could instantly disqualify about 90% of all married women without passports or other proof that matches their birth certificates or proof of a legal name change. For women in that situation, they can still register to vote if they can prove that they went to court to change their name when they got married, but most women just start using their new married name without ever going through all those formalities, although a few states recognize marriage as a legal name change." And then Hartman puts a button on it at the end with, quote, "I'll say it again, this effort by Republicans to blackmail Democrats into disenfranchising millions of women just in time for a critical election, just like their claim that legal Haitian immigrants are eating white people's pets, is complete, utter, unmitigated bullshit." Can you imagine a policy more representative of where the Republican Party is at the moment than this? They're not satisfied with just introducing unnecessary legislation to combat the imaginary problem of undocumented people voting. They're not satisfied with granting imperial powers to the president to strike voters off the rolls of the individual states whenever it suits them. They need to sneak in this extra little detail. They need to structure the regulations in this bill such that, by sheer coincidence, it would make it incredibly difficult for millions of American women to continue to exercise their constitutionally guaranteed right to vote. And of course, the Republicans will say, well, that's not the point. That's not the intention. We're just trying to protect the integrity of our elections. And it just so happens that the method they have chosen to protect the integrity of our elections could potentially disenfranchise millions of women. Gee, funny how it works out that way, isn't it? This is dangerous. This is who these people are. This is who the Republican Party is. This is the kind of country that they want. They don't want non-white people, immigrants, to be able to vote. They don't want women to be able to vote. They want to control the franchise. They want to make it exclusive to their base, and they want to solidify their political power so that we can never, ever take it away from them. We cannot allow them to do that. The only way to deal with these people is to show up on Election Day and to feed them a resounding defeat. And I really hope that everybody watching this is prepared to do their part to make that happen. Anyway, that's it for me. I am Steve Shives. I am sitting in for Jesse Dollemore all this week. If you want to see more of me than you could ever possibly want in your right mind, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Steve Shives and follow me on social media at the links included in the video description. Also, don't forget, if you are somehow seeing this video and you're not yet subscribed to the Dollemore channel, subscribe to this channel. It's great. It's usually another guy doing this that is better than me. I will be here all this week. I will see you next time. And until then, please remember, we have an election coming up soon. So if you are one of my fellow Americans, double check your registration. If you are capable of doing more, please do more. But at the very least, on November 5th, vote. See you next time, everybody.